elegant Luo bin sub floating state Shaanxi people. Parents died young, from the age of 8 or 9 on the cause Luo uncle to raise. Luo is the great cause of Imperial College officials and family very wealthy but childless. He particularly cherished son Luo float, regard him as one of his sons. Luo child floating in the age of 14, lured by the bad guys and indulge in whoring. There was a prostitute came from Jinling, non-resident state bin, Luo sub float like her very much and whom deeply confused. When the prostitute returned Jinling, Luo sub float also secretly followed her to leave the house. He lived for 6 months in the prostitute with all the money spent. Prostitutes began to suffer ridicule and abandon, but not immediately be expelled from the brothel door only. Soon, Luo sub float a sexually transmitted disease, lower body festering, pus confused dirty bed seats everywhere, prostitutes and finally put him out the door. Luo float a child is sick, penniless, degenerated into a beggar, begging to people in the streets. People saw him afar off are shunned. Luo sub floating feared that they will die abroad, so all the way west, while begging, the home side to go. He can go about 40 miles a day 3-way. Day after day, he gradually came to bin within state boundaries, this body to see their tattered clothes, a festering abscess, too ashamed to think of their loved ones, and finally stagnant near bin state's neighboring counties. One evening, Luo sub float intended to vote into the mountains of the temple overnight. In Piedmont he met a woman, extraordinary beauty, like a fairy in heaven. When Luozi float approached, she asked, "Where are you headed?" Luo float his own son told her truthfully, and she said, "I am a monk. Where I live there is a cave. You can stay. Do not be afraid, little tigers." Luozi floating very happy, followed her, go deep in the mountains, and she saw a large cave, also found holes in front of a creek sideways, streams above is also strapped to a small stone bridge after a hole. Beyond the cave took a few steps, they saw a 2-stone chamber, the room was bright, do not move the candle lighting. Women make Luozi floating off a tattered clothes, go to the creek to take a bath, add it after, wash, body will naturally heal source rotten Luo child floating bath. Woman and put aside the curtains, shop good bedding, urging him early child asleep, he said you quickly go to sleep, I'll make sets of underwear then, taking a slice of banana leaves like large leaves like using it to cut and sew clothes, Luo watched her son floating in bed to do. Soon, the clothes well, woman's clothes folded on his bed, said tomorrow morning it will wear it, then, the woman across from him in bed asleep, Luo child floating in the creek water bath. The body is no longer sore ulcer pain. Middle of the night he woke up from a dream, who touched the sore ulcer, end up with a thick layer of scab. The next morning, Luo sub float to get up, think of the bedclothes made of banana leaves, some heart cannot help but suspect that he picked up the clothes look, but it is extremely smooth green brocade. After a child, to eat breakfast, woman's got a few mountains to the leaves, said to be the cake, a floating Luozi eat. Really is a cake. Woman with leaves and cut chicken, fish shapes on the pot to cook. Luo sub folder float up and eat a hole with really no different. Corner of the sarcophagus there is a large jar, filled with wine. Women often pour out drinking altar wine just a little drink. Some women look inside some of the streams coming down as a supplement. Luo child floating in the mountains for a few days, the body of the scab had fallen out, and he asked women the same places. The woman said, "You guys just thin preservation of their lives to secure the lower body." You start thinking of the floating Luo child said, "I just want to repay your kindness." Since then, 2 people sleeping together, love each other very happy. One day, a young woman with a smile into the cave to a door said, "Elegant, you little devil head, jolly good thing for both of you die is made when it elegant welcome out," smiled and said, "Flower lady is coming, you know guests but a long time coming, and today it must be born southwest wind, brings you here a little mess I'll not hold on." Flower lady said the is a small girl dancing smiled and said, "Wait flower lady is not that how you took her to it." Flower lady said just coax her for a while, now asleep, said, Hu Chang lady models shall sit down, reach for the glass, he sipped slowly. Flower lady looked at the child floating. Luo said, musical little you burn the incense. Luo said, float closer. Look, flower lady, her age is 23-year-old, same good looks, behavior and moving, floating Luozi, and my heart fell in love with her. Luozi floating dreamer to peel the rind, a fruit accidentally dropped on the disc. He bent down and pretended to pick fruit, but secretly pinched the flower laddie's feet. Flower snake eyes looked elsewhere, said with a smile, as if do not know anything. Luozi float being stumbled random thought, suddenly felt a cool body of underwear, look at the clothes, but also all turned into the autumn leaves. Luozi floating past almost scared to death, and quickly win their hearts and sat. He sat upright for a moment, his clothes only gradually returned to their original appearance. Luo said, float secretly glad that two women did not see his embarrassment. After a while another child, Luo child drinks upon by the opportunity to float, with your fingers lightly scratched flower lady palms. Flower lady talk and laugh freely, seemed to be completely unaware. Luozi floating heart fluttered, and looked in a trance. He suddenly found his clothes turned into leaves, and it took a while before they changed back. Luozi floating overwhelmed with shame, this dispelled the idea. Molested flower snake, did not dare to have fantasies. Flower lady smiled and said, your little musical be less than honest if vinegar gourd lady discipline, lest he should jump to heaven. Elegant smiled and said, fickle things, which really put you freeze to death. Two women are clapping her hands and laughed. Flower lady got up and left the meeting. Leaf said, the little girl woke up soon, am afraid she would cry. Heartbroken son. Dancing also stood up and said, seduce people to patronize the man, cannot remember the early small river city. Kusi flower city left. Luozi floating at 6s and 7s, for fear of dancing scold him, but he was dancing on as usual. Then, after some days, too late autumn, cold and windy, Shuangde Yella, dancing began to collect some leaves, savings food for the winter. She saw the child floating. Luo shivering with cold. Sazuobozi, he took a piece of the burden of skin, pick up the hole in the clouds, pack a bag, as he did a cotton-lined jacket. Luo said, float warm feeling, honking, light, soft and fluffy, just put on a new jacket. The same, the following year, gave birth to a son, elegant, very smart, beautiful. Luo said, float every day for fun, teasing son in the cave, but he also often miss home. Please go back to dancing along with him. Dancing, he said, I cannot go back with you one, or you go back from one, so follow. Then, after 2023, the son grew up, it was engaged with flower laddie's daughter. Luozi floating often miss his elderly uncle, elegant comfort, he said, uncle despite her age, but he is quite strong. So we do not miss you. Grew up tending his son. After finishing marriage, just let fate, you will be up dancing in the cave. The leaves often taught his son to read and write. Very talented son, never forget. Dancing, he said, this child has fuxiang, put the future on earth, so great to be a prime minister's official. I am afraid is not difficult. A few years later, their son was 14. Flower lady personally brought his daughter to marry River City wearing a gorgeous dress, eyes sparkling, brilliant. Luozi floating and dancing like them very much, the whole family together to put on a large wedding. In the banquet, lightly pounding noble singing, I have good Ginjiro, do not envy the prime minister, I have a good daughter, do not envy the wearing of silk. Gather together tonight, we rejoice, king and king glass of wine, advise you. Multi-meal later, flower lady is gone, elegant wife and son and daughter lived in the door. In particular the new wife filial, often nestled in her mother's knee, like their own daughter. Luozi floating returned home, picked up things, dancing, said, you have the body vulgar bone, after all, cannot become immortal. Who is also the son of rich human, can be taken away together. I do not want to delay his son's future. The bride being want to say goodbye to his mother. Flower lady has come, a pair of small children with their mother reluctantly, parting, their eyes filled with tears. Two mothers to comfort them. You go for the time being, we can come back later. So elegant cut donkey with leaves, so the three of them rode on the road. At this time, the child floating Luo uncle had great cause retire, at home homebound, He thought his nephew Lot, subfloat, would have died that day, suddenly saw the handsome grandson and nephew with a beautiful granddaughter back. He happy treasure. 3 people at the door. Take a look at their own clothes, all banana leaves. Hand said something, banana leaves broken, clothing fog clouds are slowly rose to the sky, so all 3 of them changed clothes. Later, Luo subfloat missed dancing, took his son to go into the mountains looking for. They saw a familiar road has been covered with yellow leaves. Go to the hole on the road is also filled with thick clouds covered, unidentifiable. Luozi float father and son had tears back. Different, she said, dancing. Flower lady probably are immortal, right? Eat leaves, wear white clouds. What a strange thing. However, the subject of ridicule among the boudoir, modern love, parenthood, and earth, and what difference will it make? Luozi floating life in the mountains 15 years, although there is no experience, Chen Kuo is before, people have not current affairs change. However, when he returned to the cave to find elegant, there is misty clouds, the old track nowhere to be found. This situation, and the real situation of the Eastern Han Liu Chen and Ru and Zhao revisit almost fairy.